All right, everybody, we are back with Hops in a Home. It's Alexus Richmon with Lockstep, and today we are going to be featuring the beer called Belgian Style Golden Ale from Pike's Brew Company. So today we are doing our Spanish-speaking unit. So we are going to be focused on our Spanish-speaking clients and realtors and lenders and what their experiences have been like in the real estate market and over the years, and just get some insights and some ideas from them. So we have Alfredo Saleco, we have Neymar Lopez, and we have Juan Camacho. Alfredo is a realtor, Neymar is a realtor, and Juan is another lender. So they are going to talk about their experiences, where they work, how they came to this real estate world that we live in every day. So Alfredo, if you want to go first and just give a little background about yourself.
Of course, yeah, I would love to. So I started real estate 15 years ago back in my birth country, Venezuela. I worked for a real estate developer. And in Venezuela, I sold real estate for about 2 years. We were selling about 1,000 homes a year. And then 2011, I moved to Colorado, got my license in 2012. And this November is going to be 10 years. So I work for RE/MAX Leaders and specialize in the investments mostly, both residential and commercial.
Okay, awesome. Neymar?
Very nice. I'm Venezuelan too, so this is exciting to have him in the same room. I started doing real estate 5 years ago. I started at a smaller brokerage in Boulder and then moved to Denver 2.5 years ago and moved to Compass in Cherry Creek. So it's been a wonderful experience, and I would say like 95% of my clients are Spanish speakers, and I focus on residential.
Okay. Juan?
Okay. My name is Juan Camacho. I was actually born in Mexico, but my parents brought me here when I was 5 years old. Lived in El Paso, Texas. Been in Colorado for 30 plus years. Went to CU Boulder. Have a finance degree from Regis, Master's in Finance and Accounting. I got into pretty much my adult life. I bought properties for investment purposes. Got into real estate with the local bank here in Colorado. Then got recruited by Canvas. I'm I'm the only Spanish-speaking lender for Canvas Credit Union at this moment. I would say about 50% of my clients are Spanish speakers, and the others are actually have a pretty good circle of influence from in Boulder. So have a nice split between Spanish and English-speaking customers.
Awesome. Love to hear that. And if you haven't listened to the other ones, I came from banking at Canvas as well. I just did the retail side, so I worked with Juan quite often just to refer clients to them to do loans for mortgages. And then I decided to get into lending myself after buying my first home last year. And so now I am a broker with Lockstep Mortgage. So that's just a little bit about me.
And actually, I must say that my best customer was introduced to me by Alexus Brandon Truss. He is by far my best customer. Been an amazing referral partner, and a lot of it has to do with Alexus doing due diligence and being an awesome worker when she was at Canvas, and we worked really well together. Hence the reason we're sitting here next to each other.
Yeah.
And she invited me to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, all of you. I'm very excited. All right. So what do you think having a Spanish-speaking realtor or lender, why do you think having a Spanish-speaking lender or realtor is important? If you're working with a Spanish-speaking client.
Oh, yes. My clients, like I say, like 95% of my clients, they speak Spanish. And for them, sometimes they are bilingual and they will like communicate in English too. But for them, it's so important to be able to talk in the same language when they're talking about these like important matters. I mean, it's the same like you're going to get a surgery, right? You want to make sure you're speaking like the same language with your doctor so the right thing is being done. So same thing with my clients. I work with lenders that speak Spanish, inspectors that speak Spanish, or closers. I make sure they speak Spanish too, so they really know what they're signing, what the process is, and they feel confident and comfortable during the entire process.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alfredo?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very similar to what Neymar is saying. It's trust. Basically, there's so many different new terms here in the U.S., in Colorado. Every state has different rules and laws. And the real estate market here is very different than what you would find anywhere else in the world. So when making a big investment like buying a home which is for most people is the biggest investment that they'll ever do in their lives, it's very important to understand every part of the contract, every part of the transaction, everything that is involved. So if we can work with a lender, a realtor, title company that is able to translate these terms or these very specific terms to our language, or give us an idea or an example, it creates a lot more trust in the transaction. So that way the client is very informed.
Yeah, absolutely. Juan?
I think I'll just piggyback on what they said. It's important to be able to connect with the Spanish-speaking community. I go back to my own experience. Again, coming here at a young age, my parents bought their first house when I was in high school, and they didn't really understand much English. So being in high school, it was up to me to translate, and it was frustrating because back in the day in Colorado, there was not many Hispanics, especially in rural Colorado where I grew up. Every time I talked to a Spanish-speaking customer, I would go back and remember how my parents felt, not understanding the process. So I take that very personal.
Yes, absolutely. That's amazing. I will. What are some misconceived notions about the Spanish-speaking lender, realtors, and clients process?
I would say like the Spanish, like for the actual client.
Yeah.
Sometimes they think, I mean, many of my clients, like especially the second time buyers, they are scared because they had a bad experience in the past, because they didn't know what they were signing. So I would say that being super transparent with them is important, because they have that background. I had just recently an experience when I was helping a client to sell a home and buy another one, and they were so defensive and nervous because like the first time around didn't go well. And it was somebody that didn't speak the language, and they didn't really know like the HOA rules or all those things. So I think it is super important like to make sure we educate our clients and let them know like what they're signing and all that. So
yeah, absolutely. One?
Again, just being transparent and try to explain to them the entire process. I think that what I've come to experience or I've heard is sometimes they get it. They feel like they're ignored because they're not sophisticated. Sometimes they're crunching pennies to come up with a down payment. They feel like maybe they're not the ideal client. So I have in my personal experience, I have an amazing loan officer assistant who actually has 30 years in the mortgage industry. I have the best processor in the company, and we make it work. So when I take a loan from a Spanish-speaking customer who's done their first deal ever, they don't even know much about how the interest rate impacts the loan, other than the higher the interest rate, but they don't look at the other variances in the loan. You really have to sit down and talk to them. But when I say I can do a loan, for me that's especially important, especially when it comes to a Spanish speaker, because I know how important it is. And I think I was in a conversation the other day, and somebody said, "What does every immigrant that comes to this country really, really want to do?" And that is buy their first home. That is when somebody buys their first home, they're in their mind they're achieving that American dream. And so for me, it's important to make them understand that they are important to me, and I will do everything in my power to close the deal for them.
And adding to the lending side, I think also many immigrants, they are not sure if they can even get a loan, especially like the DACA immigrants or the people that have ITIN. Sometimes they don't even know they can get a loan or how much money they need for the down payment. Like right now there are banks that are giving loans with 5% for somebody with an ITIN when it used to be 10-20%. So they don't know it, and then or they just think that they can get it. So that I would say that's a huge one.
Yeah, and I think I've come across some people that are like, well, the lender told me they could do this. They ordered the appraisal, and then a week before closing, the deal was done because the lender couldn't do it. I think I take a lot of pride when I assume a loan. I'm within 24 hours, I will let them know, yes, we can do this, or no, we're not going to do this. And I feel like transparency and honesty is very important in this industry, because you don't want to waste anybody's resource or money or time or get their hopes up if you can't do that. And sometimes I think they get tricked on to like, yeah, we can do the loan for 3% down. A week before closing, like, no, now we need 10% down, and it's not fair for anybody, and it causes unnecessary stress.
Alfredo?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, very common to see clients that had bad experiences in the past, or their neighbors, their family members had bad experiences. And there's a lot of rules and regulations that go into play both on the real estate side and in the lending side. And a lot of people don't take the time to explain to the clients what the issue really is, or why things are done in a certain way or the other. So transparency is something very important, but as I'm saying, there's a lot of rules and regulations, but it's very important to take the time to explain to the client their actual situation, and to set up realistic goals and expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. Did anybody want to add anything to that one?
That's good.
How has your experience been as a bilingual realtor lender in the real estate community?
I love it. I'm very passionate about helping the Hispanic community, trying to be involved. Before real estate, I used to be involved with nonprofits, trying to help the community, help the Venezuelan community too, back in our country, and always like volunteering with these nonprofits. I'm always been like very passionate about helping them with education or resources, just being myself a resource sometime. So with this, it's been wonderful. Once I moved to Denver, I was able to connect with NAREP, that is the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. And then through them, we've been able to provide education to the real estate community. Agents, everybody in the industry can participate with us. And also, I was appointed to be a board member with DMAR. And it's been wonderful because, I mean, just being sitting in that room with all these leaders and being able to give my input as a Hispanic member and also an immigrant, it's been wonderful. And also seeing my clients reaching their goals, it really fulfills me. Especially, I mean, there's something special about first-time home buyers when they're able to get that first home, and then you know as an agent that that's going to impact the future of that family and their kids and everybody else around them, because it's contagious too, right? Like if your neighbor buys a house or somebody you know, then you're like, how did they did it? Like, I want to do it too. Yeah. And it is wonderful. And I would say like the Hispanic community is really good at referrals, right? Because if they like you, they will refer you away, or like all the way, because they want the other person to have the same good experience. So it's been wonderful. Yeah,
absolutely. Alfredo?
Yeah, so I started real estate in 2011 when there was a lot of foreclosures, and back then I started in investment side of real estate, buying and flipping homes. And when going to the auctions, it was surprisingly to see the amount of Hispanics that were getting evicted and foreclosed on by banks, by the courts. And in most cases, a lot of these people would have enough equity in the property where they would be able to sell the property rather than going through the foreclosure process. So that was a big eye-opening for me in 2011. And that's when I saw the big need that the Hispanic community has. So it was a very eye-opening experience to see how badly served was the Hispanic community here. There was a big need for a good service, good professionals in the real estate side and the lending side. So for me, it's been an amazing experience because my background again is in real estate investments. So the way we practice at my office real estate is by helping families create a legacy for their future generations. So basically, we use real estate as the vehicle to create that legacy, to create a portfolio, so future generations can live on and can depend on. So I mean, it's amazing, as Neymar was saying. Once you're able to generate actual results to the clients that you're working with, is an amazing experience. Very satisfactory. Yeah.
One.
Same thing. I mean, it's I take pride in helping anybody. I don't care if they're English. Only speak English, only speak Vietnamese. Actually, have some of my best friends are Vietnamese. But in all honesty, I do take special pride when it comes to helping an immigrant that just came here, that came from especially Mexico, being my home country, or any Latin American country, because I put myself in their position. The great thing about my experience so far is I think I work for an amazing organization. You have a little bit of experience there. Obviously, you were in a different department, but I work for one of the largest credit unions in the state. As you can attest, when you're a member of Campus Credit Union, we do what's right for the member. So we're not going to do anything tricky. We're not going to do anything shady. We're not going to do anything that's going to put our member in a bad position or a potential new member. And it makes my job a lot easier. It eliminates that stress. Or I am one of the most productive loan officers in the credit union. Hence the reason I have an assigned loan assistant. But some months are better than others. And when a slow month comes, I don't stress about it, because I know that my bosses aren't going to push me to push a product onto somebody that doesn't really need it. My experience and my reputation at the credit union remains pretty high, because also because of the fact that I am who I can be myself at the credit union and not feel like I'm deceiving anybody. And it helps me a lot when I'm facing especially a Spanish-speaking borrower that just is trying to buy their first house, and allows me to give them the best information and prepare them for the purchase to the best of my ability.
I'm a fan of credit unions.
Yeah, we're good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Love it.
Yes, and one thing about Juan that I love as well is if he's not able to do the loan, he doesn't just sit with that you look for resources and see if somebody else can do it, because you don't want to leave that borrower in the wind. Nice. And say that it's just a defeat and that you can't do it with anybody, but there might be somebody out there and a resource that you've tapped into that you can send them, and that is building that trust and rapport with clients. And I think that's why you've been so successful as well.
Well, thank you. And I know Alexis and I have bounced leads off each other at times. Yep. I've sent her a couple leads when I'm like, I don't think we can do this, but she has that product. And just a side note, Alexis and I go back now, 4 years? Maybe 4 years. She's somebody that not is only a partner, a business partner, but also a friend. So
yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes. And so what negative responses have you had to combat as a person of color, specifically Hispanic descent, here in the real estate market?
Again, like just the negative experiences that they had before and those stories, I would say that that's most likely. I personally haven't had any issue like personally with racism or anything like that, and I haven't really heard of any stories besides what I just mentioned, that they didn't really know what they were signing. But other than that, thank God, no more than that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Alfredo?
Yeah, no, I've never had any bad experiences, honestly, that I had to come back from. Yeah, I mean, maybe the only thing that sometimes I can point out is that a lot of agents or lenders, sometimes they assume that because we're bilingual or we come from a different country, our level of service or our knowledge is inferior to them. So sometimes they'll probably make an assumption that we don't know what we're doing, but I mean, it's not racism or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, it's not something that affected me or my clients personally. I feel that Colorado is a very good state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Juan?
I agree, and I agree with Alfredo and Neymar. I love Colorado. I love Denver. I've traveled quite a bit in my life, and the more I travel, the more I love Denver. I don't think we necessarily see obvious racism. I think all human beings are inherent racist. It doesn't have to be towards a person. It's towards something but I haven't really had any bad experiences. And again, I think it's in this business, if you're going to survive in this business, you got to be confident. So my take has always been, if somebody has a problem with my ethnicity or where I came from, I can't change that. That's your problem, not mine. So I'm
Good.
gonna be myself until the day I die, and I'm proud of who I am and where I came from.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good note to end, I guess. I like that as well. Okay, so what about the buying process do you feel is different for Spanish speakers?
It is very different. It's probably it probably takes twice of the effort that it would take with somebody that speaks English, because we need to translate everything to them, explain. Let's say like the HOA docs arrive. You know, I usually just go through them with my clients because they won't understand what it means, and I make sure most of my clients are first-time home buyers, and I explain the entire process. I do a buyer consultation, and they usually are nervous, and it probably will take like an hour and a half every time that I meet with a client, and then again they ask a lot of questions. Like if they talk to a lender, they usually will come back to me to make sure they are okay. They have this, they're defensive, they're nervous, and it takes longer. Usually the way that they get approved also takes longer because sometimes they don't have a W-2 job. Sometimes most of my clients, they have like their own business. And then when you're self-employed, the process, it might take longer. It might be more difficult. And then there's all these forms that they need to fill out, and they are all in a different language, and you need to explain all those to them. And again, like the Hispanic community, I'm a big fan of of financial literacy, because it's not only buying the house, it's the rest and getting ready for it, right? Like sometimes I have a client and it takes me 2 or 3 years to get them ready to buy because they don't trust in the banks because they had a bad experience in their country where their money got taken away or something happened. So they have their money like under the matrix.
Yeah.
You can, sometimes that happens, and then you have to like start from zero and make sure that they put the money in the bank, they reflect how much they make when they do their taxes, that they have good credit. Because sometimes, like in my own experience, when I moved here, I had no idea how my credit score was going to impact like my entire life. Mm-hmm. So it took me a little bit to understand that, my credit score like lowered at the beginning because I didn't know that if I missed one payment on a Macy's credit card, it was going to impact my credit score and my ability to buy a car or a house. So I think education is huge, and it takes longer because if you are coming from another country, the rules are different. So you have to like start from the scratch, and it takes a lot of energy and time.
Yeah, absolutely. Alfredo?
I mean, the rules and regulations are the same for everyone, right? So I wouldn't generalize by saying that every Hispanic buyer, it takes double the amount of work or more time. Depends on the client itself. Like there's Hispanics that are super well qualified, very organized. Their tax returns are on spot, credit score super high, and they can get pre-qualified in hours. So there's some others where they're not as organized, and then you need to invest a little bit more time explaining how things work and how the lender and the banks are going to see their tax returns to qualify them for a home. So it definitely for a lot of clients it takes an extra step of explaining how things work so they can apply for the loans or the financing. But it depends for every client. I mean, I have clients from multiple different nationalities. There's ones that are easier, there's ones that are harder. I think it's like depending of how organized you are. But definitely by coming from a different country, you need to learn the new rules. As Neymar is saying, the credit scores, tax returns. There's so many different things that they don't use in our countries to qualify us or to measure our liquidity or our income. So it's important to like understand the rules, understand your goals, and then work with someone that is able to lead you through the process so you can go from having a dream to creating a reality.
Yeah. Juan?
I think, especially as a lender, you see that a lot. Case in point, I closed on a purchase yesterday. It was for a member of the credit union. It was a non-arm's length transaction. I thought it was going to be easy, and once we started digging in, You had them pay all these liabilities. Had to get an exception because their income was pretty high. We at the Canvas Credit Union, we have an amazing portfolio program. Everything was perfect. They had about $3,000 left to pay on the car. I told them 4 times, make sure there's a paper trail. And what do? They go and pay their car with cash. So obviously we, as soon as we realized that it caused all the stress and problems, I had to call them, explain to them why they couldn't just pull money out of their mattress and pay that. So we had to do a reverse transaction. It delayed the closing by a day. Thankfully, it was a non-arm's length. But you see this a lot. Another time I had a borrower too, a member. I said, can you type this quick letter of explanation? And somehow she managed to put the whole entire letter or explanation on the title of the email, on the subject line of the email. And it's one of those things that you laugh because that they don't do it on purpose. They just don't know the system or how it works, and it just takes a little bit of time. But again, it's at the end of the day, there's that feeling like I just helped an immigrant, somebody that's trying to establish themselves in this country. I helped them buy that house, and it gives you that personal reward that maybe you don't have that with somebody with a CU degree that is an engineer and making $200,000 a year, and that one went smooth. And but at the end of the day, you remember that that person that somehow didn't think they could buy a house, they were able to do it, and it gives you that satisfaction.
And that you change their future.
Exactly.
Like that's impactful.
Yeah, but going to what you're saying, I think it's definitely more based on education and personality.
Right.
If you're talking to a engineer, well, he's going to be extremely organized. Everything is going to be perfect. He's going to have a record of everything. Everything is going to be organized, categorized. So when you ask for an application, everything is going to be there. If you ask a real estate agent like myself, we're not the most organized people out there. Like we love dealing and willing. We like putting deals to. We love dealing, right? We love getting people into homes, making deals, right? It's completely different than what an engineer does. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's fair to say like, oh, Hispanics are very unorganized, or
of course not.
It's harder to get them qualified. I think it's personality wise.
Well, I think hitting on that. One of the things that I always acknowledge is you can't just lump a Hispanic community into one group.
Exactly.
My wife is from Peru. Peruvians are much different than Mexicans. Mexicans are much different than Salvadorians and Venezuelans or Colombians or Argentina. I've been fortunate to travel quite a bit in my life, especially most of South America, and different communities, different origins like to deal differently. I'm not trying to generalize. I hate generalizing. Period. But I think there is some truth to that. I think most immigrants that come from South America, in my experience, and this is only my experience, are probably a little bit more educated because our immigration system in this country is completely messed up. Let's not even get into that. But in my experience, most people that come from South America are a little bit more educated, maybe, or more organized. And Mexicans that come here because, or the proximity, sometimes people that immigrate from Mexico are not as experienced, not as well versed in the finance. And I say that because my parents were that way. My dad was worked in the fields in New Mexico. That's how we came legal status. My dad didn't know anything, the difference between a stock or a mutual fund. But we made it work. Obviously, again, like I said, I'm proud of where I came from. And I think it's every person is an individual. But in my experience, because my underwriter tells me that, my senior underwriter tells me that, he's like, we had a new loan officer that we hired at the beginning of the year, and I was at the home office, and he literally tells the loan officer, if you want to learn about loans, talk to Juan, because he gets the craziest files. And why is that? Because half of my members are Spanish speaking, and I think it's not a racist comment. It's not a generalized comment. I think it's just the nature of the business. But again, it's you treat everybody with respect. You treat everybody with professionalism. And at the end of the day, the goal is the same: get them into a home, whether it's their first home, second home, an investment property, or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, and it's very important also to surround yourself of professionals that are good at what they're supposed to do. So, for example, as I was saying, I'm not the most organized person. I'm a real estate agent, but I have a really good CPA that takes care of my taxes. My operations manager in my office, my assistant, like if you want a record of anything, she'll have it. Like, so I'm not the most organized person myself, but I surround of people that are organized, so they help organize my mess, right?
Sure.
So, so it's important when coming from a different country to surround yourself with people that are good at what they're supposed to do. So you're a new immigrant, surround yourself with a good CPA, good real estate agent, financial advisor, lender. It makes a massive difference just to work with the right people. Because honestly, a lot of the times that I see families that come to me that wanting to buy a house, it's not their fault that their taxes are not how they're supposed to be.
Of course.
It's not. A lot of the mistakes were made by others, by the incorrect professionals. So it's very important to whoever's listening. Just like if you want good results, just try to find the best in that industry so they can advise you on what you need.
No, and I agree with you again because a little bit of my background. Again, I have an MBA from finance and accounting, and sometimes you said it right on the spot. I get a lot of my borrowers that own a construction company, and they hire, for whatever reason, they hire a bookkeeper, and I look at their taxes and I'm like, oh my God, like how could you get away with this? How did you let the bookkeeper get away with this? And I think at the end of the result, which I'm guilty of. Bill Gates is guilty of, Elon Musk is guilty of, the construction worker. We all want to reduce our taxes, right? We want to. No, I don't like paying taxes. I don't know. To this day, I don't know anybody that likes to pay taxes.
I like paying taxes.
I don't like paying taxes.
I don't like to. I mean, it's my it's my duty as an American citizen. And again, we take for granted what we have, and we love this country. But I don't like to pay more taxes than
you should.
Than I should, right?
Of course not.
And sometimes I talk to them like, well, I told my bookkeeper I was going to buy a house. I'm like, well, why did he do this and that and that? And I think you're right. I mean, I have an amazing CPA. She does that. And again, my loan officer assistant to this day is one of my best friends. But he tells me now, I was literally ready to submit my resignation, dude, because you were so unorganized. And then he told me about it. We organized our files, my files, and now he's one of my best friends. He's like a brother to me. I know his family. He knows my family. And I think it just takes that a little bit of the, getting to know and understanding each other. And at the end of the day, it's the reason he told me you need to do this and that so I can help me help you was because the end goal was the customer, the member, the borrower. And I think we can all learn from that. So
I think that's why education is so important, and like being involved with your community and being able to be involved with those organizations that provide those resources and spread the word, because you don't know what you don't know. So obviously they make mistakes, and it's like in me personally. For me, it's a responsibility to be able to spread the word, to be involved with certain organizations that are educating our community so they can be financially stable and ready to purchase a home.
Yeah. And I liked what you said about everybody can be involved, because I think it's also important to educate people that are not in your community and if in case they do get those loans, they are still equipped to handle it and know where their resources are and be okay to ask for help and make sure that the title person, as me, I've done Spanish speaking loans myself, and just making sure that there's someone there that speaks Spanish at title. Do you have a realtor that's translating these things for you? Do you not? What do you not understand? Is someone translating so that you can, as I cannot. So, just being an advocate, but knowing your resources as someone in the community that isn't Spanish speaking, but still wants to help and be an ally and be an advocate to make sure that they're still getting a home. And I think that those bad experiences are for the people that treat it just like every other transaction. When you're not a part of the community, it's not another transaction. You have to be malleable. You have to change and adapt and learn and figure out what other ways to make sure that they're still getting the same information and getting the same experience. So I just wanted to add to that.
Being a resource, important.
So that's why I thought it was important we were all here today. So I can learn.
Thanks so much for the invite.
So what programs or steps have you taken to create more space for Spanish speakers in real estate or homeownership? It was kind of like a double.
I mean, I would say, like, as for now, being involved with NAREP, it's been huge for me. Being able to connect with other professionals in the industry that have the same mindset or similar mindset of a sense of community to help out and being involved. And not only being involved with the transaction itself, but also policies about housing that, of course, like, you can be ready to buy a house, but if the policies that are in place are not supporting you, then you're not going to be able to buy a house. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's important to be involved. I'm not saying in politics, but policies. So knowing what's happening, and I really like the fact, like, for example, in NAREP, we have somebody that is in governments and affairs. So that person goes to Congress, goes to all these meetings, and then they come back and share with us all that information, and we are aware, we can vote, we can spread the word too. So I would say, for me, like, being part of that organization has been very impactful. Mm-hmm.
Alfredo?
Yeah, so what I do, I have 2 weekly radio interviews in Hispanic radio stations. And in those interviews, every week I talk about the real estate market, the economy, Wall Street, investments. I do most of my program is about education. So depending on what's happening that week in the economy, in the state, in different counties, basically that's the information that I provide to the community. And we also offer free consultation to anyone that is willing to. That wants to grow, that wants to be better tomorrow than they are today, that wants to improve their finances. So I help them in the real estate side, and then my wife is a financial advisor, so she helps them on the financing side. So, we just try to be as much of a resource to the community as possible, so they can get the correct information and understand how different changes are affecting their specific situation.
Juan?
Yeah, my hands are, I would say my hands are a little bit tied because I do represent a credit union, so I can't just go out there and do marketing at my own liking, or because I want to do this and that. Mm-hmm. That is something that I've been talking to our executive team about, Canvas being more known in the Hispanic community. We are the second largest credit union in the state. We're actually the number one. You can attest to that. Mm-hmm. We're the number one auto lender in the state, and a large portion of our members are Spanish speaking only, especially in the Thorn branch, which you're very familiar with. Yes. That's where I got in a lot of my referrals, and I think the only thing I do on a personal level is I try to. What's the best word to say this? I try to connect to the Hispanic member the best way I can and make them feel like at home. And because the credit union, we sometimes this Hispanic member wants to meet in person at the credit union, which in this at the current times, that's something that is kind of a losing art, or most people want to apply online, and I'll be honest, 80% of my members or my borrowers I never meet in person. Everything is handled online, over the phone, or but sometimes you do have that member, and not only Hispanic, but different members that want to meet in person. They're like, no, they're adamant about meeting in person, so we scheduled a branch meeting. But going back to the Hispanics, sometimes a lot of them have their own business or their work long hours, and they're unavailable from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. and they work Saturdays, and I don't have any qualms about inviting them to my home. I have an office in my home, and I welcome them to my house, because sometimes that's just getting to know that person and getting to meet him face to face. That's very important, especially from people that come from our countries and our background. They're used to the handshake. They want to meet in person. They want to do that business and get to know that person. So, but again, it's something that, because I represent an organization, sometimes my hands are limited, but doesn't mean I'm not trying. And I'm trying to offer more products and be a bigger presence in the Hispanic community.
Yeah, and one of the things that we also do is we have presentations for companies, workshops where we teach the employees or families about personal budget. So basically understanding how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, with the idea of helping them understand their finances and try to help them save 20% of their income every month. And then we teach them also how to use that 20% to invest in real estate, or to open up a 401k, a SEP IRA, or create retirement plans, emergency funds, even helping them buy stocks. So that's something that I do for companies that have 20 or more employees. But also in my team, I have a person that is personal budget specialist. So she'll sit down with each one of our families that are coming to our office and explain them how this budget works, so they can understand their finances, and again with the idea of helping them create a legacy for their families.
You must have been feeling my spidey sense. I was just about to ask you about that.
Yeah,
because I knew that was something you were working on.
Yeah.
And budgeting is very important. So I do that. I try to as well as have those budgeting conversations. Just coming from the credit union, we would have to sit down a lot with them and talk about, okay, so you have when you're starting someone's account, we have to talk about what we're putting in here. Do we need separate savings accounts for different things? Do we need separate accounts entirely that you can't access? So just that discipline in learning who the person is and how it's going to be best for them. I know for me, if it's out of sight, out of mind, it will be not touched. And if it's automatically coming out, I don't miss it. Yeah. So those are two things that I've learned from working at the credit union. So, just those little tidbits that you can share with people. So
yeah, that's smart.
Yes. So how do you think bilingual agents, lenders have improved the industry?
I think, again, by providing that service. I would say that maybe when you started in the business, you probably were like one of the 5 Spanish speaker realtors in Colorado. So I think like
I'm not that old.
You're not that old, right?
I'm not that old.
But like there were like less resources, and I think and that's what I hear. I mean, I'm barely new. I've been in the United States for 10 years, so. But I hear that before there were not that many resources. There were not that many agents that spoke Spanish that had the resources. So like right now, being able to have access to that, it is wonderful. Like they feel home. So I would say that's all. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean exactly what you're saying. Just by the more bilingual agents and realtors that are in the state, the more the community is served. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, not all bilingual agents or realtors are good professionals, but definitely the community now have more resources, more different opportunities or options to find help. Now, one thing that is extremely important right now is just basically for us to be connectors, connecting the community with the professionals that can help them. So, for example, we're big connectors of our clients to our CPAs, to our attorneys, to a different variety of professionals that can help our clients achieve what they need on what they need. So maybe an insurance agent. Mm-hmm. We work with so many different businesses that have the wrong insurance policies. They have a personal policy on a business car, when the car or the truck should have its own commercial policy. So helping them with liability, tax preparation. I mean, it's so many different things that we can help the community with. So basically, by just us being that connector, it makes a massive impact, and I think the community is better served. Absolutely.
Juan?
I think it's a free market, right? I think in the past, I've been in Colorado for 30 years. In the past, Hispanics or Spanish speakers were taken for granted. Sometimes they were taken advantage of. And I think the more that is out there, the more I have to be on my toes. The better prepared I have to be on my toes. I can't just blow somebody off because I'm like, they're Spanish speaker. I'm the only Spanish speaker lender in the state or in Denver. No, that is not true anymore. you know that our customers have options, whether it's a lender, whether it's an agent. I've sent referrals to agents sometimes, and they come back to me and like, I don't like this realtor. She didn't treat me right. I think she was talking down to me. Okay, fine. We'll find somebody else.
Yeah.
And same thing with the lender. I'm not always perfect. I've made mistakes, and sometimes I've worked with some realtors that I'm sorry. I don't like the way you did this, or you made a mistake, or you didn't know this, and maybe we should take our business elsewhere. And again, you learn from the mistakes. I'm a human being. I own up to my mistakes and I learn from it. And I think it's something that in 30 years ago, when I moved to Denver with my family, finding a Spanish realtor was almost impossible.
Yeah.
And I think now there's competition amongst us. We're in the same industry, and it helps the community because they get better service.
Right. It's like I love to see like the bar raising.
Yeah.
So like everybody, especially in the Hispanic community, how in not only real estate but in other careers too, how everybody is trying to be better professionals.
Exactly.
And again, it's like trying to lose that, what Alfredo was saying, like some people were saying that the Hispanic probably would like offer bad service because and I mean, we had that bad reputation, but now it's changing very quickly because we're providing a better service. We have a better competition. We are preparing better. So I love it. I love that, seeing that in our industry.
Yeah, Juan, and you mentioned the two key words that are very important, which is free market and competition. So basically, competition in a free market, that's what it creates. The more competition that you have, the better service you'll see. And that applies to our industry. Like if you see Tesla, for example, for the longest time was the only electric car maker. Now that more companies are starting to do electric cars, now Tesla has to step up their game to provide a better product, right? So the same happens in every industry, lenders, realtors. The more competition, the better service, or the bar gets raised, as you were saying, Neymar.
And I think that's especially important from coming from our countries, right? Where sometimes we don't really have a free market in our countries, and now I'm a free capitalist, and that's one of the things that makes this country to this day the greatest country on earth is competition, and it's not only at the real estate level but all levels.
That's what I love, paying taxes.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Next time I'll give you my tax bill too.
No, you said it.
I understand.
It's the greatest country.
It's
It's free market and there's competition.
Yeah, no, it is. I think, like you said, I have a son in school.
Yeah.
When I was out of college in my 20s, my priority was not to pay taxes to fund good schools, right? I'm in my 20s, I'm living my life. Now that I have a son in school, you're like, I want my son to go to like any parent, I want my son to go to the best school, get the best education, and how do we get there is by everybody paying their fair share of taxes. But when you write that check to Uncle Sam, it's always like, oh damn it.
Painful, right?
Yeah, I could be in Cancun right now, but it's like I said, it's one of those things that it's a mutual relationship that we have with this country. Our taxes, we can get into. I'm sure we can get into all these tangents. Are taxes always used appropriately? No, and whether you're liberal or conservative, we're always going to have that disagreement. But that is what makes this country work.
Yeah, that's a separate conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wanted to note too that I have also seen more programs offered that as time has gone on, and that's an imprint we've put on the industry, is that with the more conversation, more competition, more products are created to be competitive, especially on the lending side. And that's great because it means that we don't have to fit someone into one category, into one product, and find a way to make it work. We have other products that could fit better and get them through the door, and maybe we can look at those original products down the line for the next one. But I think that's also been a really good contribution, is it's not just one conventional FHA, VA, USDA. We have so many options to offer. So,
And I also think that's something that is going to increase a lot because, the last few years, let's face it, it was very easy to get a loan approved. It was very easy to find buyers, but now with the market shifting, a lot of the companies is going to start like either improving their customer service or coming up with new programs to serve the community.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. How do you see financial access for Hispanic people in the next 10 years evolving? So you just touched on that. You said more programs. What else do you see evolving?
Financial access, you mean like grants?
Yeah, I think just educational access, access to the communities, access to resources. What do you see increasing?
Well, I mean, the Hispanic community is increasing by itself. So we are a massive force in this country. We as Latinos or Hispanics, we have a very strong presence in the economy, and will continue to be a massive presence. And I think our market share is expanding, honestly, because of the effort that we are all putting in. Call it roofers, drywallers, engineers, teachers. Like, we're all doing a massive effort, and I think, when you talk about programs or grants, that's more. I think that's more related towards like the government or different industries trying to provide tools for the community, but I think the community itself is already doing a massive effort to increase our presence and our market share. It doesn't matter which industry.
Yeah, like he was saying, the Hispanic community, I read somewhere that it was like 51% of the workforce, like last year, the increase was
in Denver,
Hispanic community. So we're growing, like we're like the youngest generation in minorities. So we're getting into that point where the Hispanic millennials are going to start getting into homes. So you are going to see a lot of increase first-time homebuyer Hispanic in the next, I think it's until like 2035, somewhere around there. So, and it's just been steady the way it's been growing, how many more Hispanic people are getting their first-time home in the last 10 years or so. So it's been interesting. And I think financially, I think like right now with the IT, for example, programs that before used to be a little more difficult, like in the last 3 or 4 years, it was a little more difficult for them to get a loan, and now they are getting a little more flexible. So I think, again, we need the policies. We need to get involved there, so we can get more access to financial resources.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, exactly. I think Hispanics are obviously a presence in this country. We are growing influence. I think on the downside sometimes, though, is for the most part, most Hispanics in some sense, they don't have all the financial education. And I'm fearing that with this rising interest rates and the competition right now, guess who's going to be left out? Probably going to be left out more so than not. It's going to be the blue collar Hispanic worker. It's probably going to be left out this next year, maybe into next year. It's going to be very, very challenging. As a lender, I know that it's very challenging because a lot of I have 20 pre-approvals right now. 10 of those are Hispanics, and I check on them, but they're getting priced out.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I have borrowers that the CEOs of Urban Grow, who he's buying his third property. We're closing on it tomorrow. Money's not a problem to him. He's building wealth, and it's a unfortunate situation that we're in, because last year it was like Alfredo was saying, it was a lot easier for first-time home buyers to get into a home. With rising interest rates, more competition, less inventory, it is a challenge that a lot of people in the Hispanic community are facing right now.
Yeah, I mean, with this marketing getting more difficult, I think that you just need new ways, new strategies. So there's going to be a lot of new changes coming, and that stuff that we're already doing with our clients to get them into interest rates in the 4%, 3.5%. So we have ways and strategies of negotiating for our clients to get under contract. But I think it honestly, it all comes down to education. So if the community is educated, if there's educational resources, then they'll know how to succeed in a challenging market, in a recession or an expansion. So I mean, programs, I don't know if there's going to be like programs specific for Latinos or minorities, but definitely education will be something that it's the real game changer.
And I want to add to that, like last year they were trying one policy for people with TPS status, and it was denied.
Okay.
So those things are being like worked on, and there is people that are thinking about those options for specific for immigrants that have specific type of status, and they're getting worked on. It's just like most people don't know about them or don't support like certain, because it is hard, right? And it can be boring, like, right? but I mean, those things are getting cooked, let's say in that way, are getting worked. But it is hard. It just take a village to push those through. But let's see, like.
For people that don't know, what is TPS?
Oh, TPS is a type of status. It's like a
Temporary political
yes.
Temporary protective status, I think.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It was mainly for Central Americans, right?
No.
Was it for?
So the
It started with the hurricane back in the 90s, right?
well, the U.S. can designate. It can designate any country, and then the U.S. can grant a TPS status for that designated country. So call it Venezuela, Salvador, Ukraine. Maybe will get a TPS. So it depends. Like usually countries that are having struggles, an emergency or something, then the U.S. can designate that country and then assign a TPS status to the people from the country.
I think that idea came about in the 1990s when the hurricane, I forgot the name of the hurricane, that severely hit Central America, specifically Nicaragua and Guatemala. And that's when the U.S. government said TPS because there was a mass influx of people coming across the border and because their countries were devastated,
and they needed to give them status.
I remember that's how it started, and I didn't know that they expanded it to other countries.
Yeah,
so it's good.
Interesting. Okay.
But those are more immigration policies than anything else.
Yeah. No, that's a good input. I definitely agree. We're definitely going to have to strategize and think outside the box to get people approved with the rising in the rates and everything, because, they said that you make an average of 70 to 80 and you might not be able to get a house now because, and you were the normal, average person, average house salary to get approved, but we're, even if you have 25,000, if you have 50,000, you might not be able to fit into the product that you're looking at, and not. So it's not even just, people that don't have anything saved. You just don't have a large amount saved, or you don't have other assets to maximize on. And I think that's why the education piece is really important for for Alfredo and everybody, for you to have this budget class and for you to talk about financial advising and to have resources and a team that they can sit down with. Just to talk about those things and see what can we leverage to help you get what we're needing. Do you have something to leverage? If not, how do we get you something to leverage in the future? So, and start building that. So I think that's definitely going to be.
And it's a challenging market for anybody, not just Hispanics. Anybody.
Absolutely.
Going back to, I lived in Boulder for many years. My sister also graduated from CU Boulder. A lot of my outside referrals have come from my former alumni or guys that I went to school with, or friends of friends and my sister's friends. And for example, I have one of my best friends who's a pharmacist, just got into divorce, and plenty of assets, great credit, comes from a great family. He's been on looking for the last 2 months, and he gets bid out every single time. And it's that's the nature of the industry, and but it is harder for Hispanics, a lot of them, because especially the immigrants, because they don't have daddy to go to. I'm like, hey, Dad, can I get a gift letter for $100,000? And it's a challenging market that we're in right now.
It is challenging, but it is. Me personally, I'm so proud to see this Hispanic community that works so hard, and they have many of my clients, they have money saved, like a lot of money saved, because they work so hard, and they probably, I don't know, the ones that have 18, for example, they've been saving for so much time because they thought they needed 20% for the down payment, and sometimes they have a mobile home paid for because that was the only thing they could buy at a certain point. So it is amazing how when I see these self-employed hard workers, they really work so hard and they have their money saved. Sometimes they have credit issues because they're just in the rush of working so hard, like both, like the mom and the dad, and then it is beautiful to see how hard they work to accomplish their dreams.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
No. Yeah. And as you're saying, I think one of the keys in these difficult markets is financial planning and strategy, because you might have an $80,000 salary and you might not be able to qualify for a $600,000 house, but you might be able to qualify for a $400,000 townhome, wait 2 years, wait for the appreciation, pay down on the principal, save some money, increase your credit score, and then 2 years later you sell it and you go buy that $600,000, $700,000 house. So just having a plan is what creates the biggest difference in any professional or any person wanting to invest in real estate or buy their first home. It's a journey. It's not a one step, one decision destination. It's a journey. So the better strategy that you have, the better financial planning that you have, the better results you'll get.
Actually, that happened a lot in 2008. And especially hit the low-income borrowers, whether Hispanic, white, Asian, whatever. They were getting into big homes because, in back then, if you had a pulse, you would get a loan.
Yeah.
And obviously, the lender was pushing them to get the bigger loan. The realtor was doing the same thing for obvious reasons. And guess what happened? They were not. They ended up losing their home. And I think that's. We don't really see that anymore. But it is one of the conversations that I have with some of my borrowers. They're single. They're young professionals, yuppies. And when I think of myself, and Alexus, you probably know this about me. Again, I was also a financial advisor. I worked for Merrill Lynch. I was actually interviewing a customer the other day who was an economic professor for Indiana University, and he started talking about shorting the market and how he was building wealth. I'm like, let's bring it, man. Come on, let's talk options. You want to talk options? Let's talk. I can talk options all day. And a lot of my friends are yuppies. We were just talking about this earlier. For some reason or another, most of my friends are in their 20s, college educated, really great jobs, and I sometimes they're like, hey Juan, I know you've been lending. Like, I'm thinking about buying a nice house up on the hill or in Boulder or maybe on Capitol Hill here in Denver. It's like, okay, well, let's take a step back, which is what you were saying. Like, why do you want a 4-bedroom house in Denver when it's you and your girlfriend? I'm like, don't you want to just maybe get into a townhome, figure things out, and then eventually you rent that house? Once you do start a family, then you do want to go for that bigger single family home. And it's all about, like you said, it's about education. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think building, as someone in their 20s right now, I'm 25, I had to really change my expectations. And I'm glad I did change my expectations because we went through a pandemic. And I was working, but there was a shift in income. There was a shift in how things were going. And I was happy to have a way lower payment, even though it may be a really small place for me, but it is just me and my dog. And, I didn't need a huge place to start off with that was overextending me, that in a financial situation might have been more stressful. But for me, I was like, this payment was less than my rent by a substantial amount, and I wasn't stressed. So I tell my friends this a lot as they're also coming into the market and having these conversations, and they come from a lot of wealth in their families, but I was saying there's two of you don't need a house in Littleton that's $700,000. I was like, I think we can start somewhere and build just like your family has, as they have multiple properties all over. I don't think they started with that $1 million home on 2nd and Bel Air. So I think that and she actually heard me and thought, you know what, you're right. Like, I could start with a townhouse that's a lot smaller, that's a lot more attainable, even though we make really good money. But it's about investing. It's about building something, not just being the one-stop shop, big house on the hill. So, as you said.
And if I recall correctly, when you were thinking about buying this house, you were still at Canvas. I was at the branch, sir, for
you were just working on something. Yeah.
No, this is when I was waiting for my new house to be built.
Oh, okay.
And I was living with my sister and her husband, and I was staying in their basement. Well, my sister and husband, they work from home too. And it was just like, all right, we have 3 laptops. The 3 people, my son was still doing remote learning. Like, there's way too many people working on the laptop. So I would go to the Broomfield branch. And I think when you came into the office one time and you told me you were thinking about buying this house. You said it wasn't what you expected, but I think I told him, like, it's a great time to get into real estate, and if you can get into this right now, down the line when she marries her. She becomes a successful lender, and she marries another successful person. Then she can go buy in her dream house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the idea is that the purchase of your home becomes the foundation of your finances, not for that purchase to become a burden in the future. So it's very important to understand that if you're buying a property, and especially when you don't have a permanent residency or citizenship in this country, it's very important to understand the risk of the purchase that you're doing, and just making sure that the property would cash flow if you were to be expelled from this country. So there's a few programs that you need to be very careful about, especially when you don't have a legal status in this country.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
Yeah. Otherwise, it could turn into a nightmare in like a second.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The rule of living below your
means.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so what is a funny story you have had working in real estate that has stuck with you over the years?
Well, I have hundreds. I used to buy properties in auctions, so we would find into so many different scenarios. But there's one time we bought a property. It had about 500 books inside. The owner had a library, and he filed bankruptcy, so he took all the books, all the movies, everything. He put it in his house. So it took us like 3 dumpsters just to get rid of all the crap inside.
Oh my gosh.
And this was like a 1,500 square feet house. There was another one that we bought. There was 6 dead cats inside. I have stories for days. I have stories for days.
Gosh,
I have stories for days. Yeah.
I had a funny one that happened last year. I was showing a house in Commerce City, and we went, I was with my client. She and I were walking around the house, and we went to the basement. And she's very leading, and she was always, I usually am in the front, right, like leading my client, but she wanted to, she and I were friends, and she was just walking around, and then we went to this basement. It was like the creepiest basement on earth. It was all painted in red and black, and it had, all these scary things on the walls, like, I don't know, it was like scary. And then there was a bedroom there. So then she went inside, she turned around, and she went to open the bedroom, and there was this like old lady there. But we were already so nervous that, we thought it was a ghost, because the lady had like long white hair and like a white dress, like a pajama dress. And then she just screamed, and I'm like, what are you screaming about? And I saw the lady, and I'm like screaming too. And then we're like, no, it's not a ghost, it's an old lady. I'm like, and then we just like ran outside. Like, she was fine, and I like apologized to her, but it was like, after we get out of the house, we were like a little less nervous, but we just were laughing. Because we didn't know she was going to be there. Like, it wasn't in the remarks. And then, the preamp of the house being very creepy and scary, and we opened that door, and there was this lady over there. It was hilarious. I felt bad for the lady though, but she was fine.
That's funny. Juan?
Well, I'm sure these guys have better stories than me, since you guys are, looking at home sanctuary. I think an interesting story happened to me. I was a purchase that it was a pretty complicated loan, because this guy had a property he's gonna put up to rent. He was buying a big farm property in Kiowa, which Kiowa is about 40 miles east of Castle Rock. I would never attend the closing that far away. I just don't have the time. But I did go to this closing because I have a rental property in Rocky Ford. That's where I went to high school, and I bought this property right after I graduated college. Long story. So I was going to go check up on the house and check up on my tenants. And I said, well, you know what? I'll work this out. The closing was on Friday. I'll go to Kiowa. This guy was nothing but the nicest person ever. Like, so thankful to this day. Like, he even bought me a really expensive bottle of tequila, because he said, what he did for me and my family is, instead of me buying him, he was buying me. Anyway, we attend the closing. I'm there for the closing, and the sellers are, older couple. I'm not going to get into more description. Older couple. No, not older couple. They were like of my age, which is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
But
You just call yourself
I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I'm old, right? I'm telling. But so, this couple, and I get introduced, and you're in rural Colorado. That's where I grew up. People are different. You don't take anything personal. I try to say, shake their hand. They shook my hand, but I could tell they were not interested in me whatsoever. They probably thought I was like some hotshot lender coming up from Denver or whatever reason. They were just not the friendliest. So we're at the signing, and I'm doing my thing. And all of a sudden they talk about how they went to Douglas County, and I said, Douglas County is the high school in Castle Rock, and I said, what year did you graduate? And that was my freshman year. I ended up graduating from Southern Colorado. And they said 1996. I'm like, I graduated in 1996. So basically we were freshmen at the same school. And all of a sudden, like, we start talking, and it turns out I was at one of the wife's, when she was in high school, I somehow ended up at their parents' party. And when her parents were out of town, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I remember going to your house, and we're like, house party. It's like, oh my God, you were like the only Hispanic kid there. I'm like, yes, that was me. So we're like, it turns out that when we started, they didn't really feel any connection to me. At the end of the day, like, we went out and grabbed drinks at the bar across the street because we were like, yeah, let's catch up on, but when we were both in high school, and got caught up a little bit, and this person and I know this person. So that was probably the most interesting story I have so far.
Then they were friendly.
And then we were friendly, yeah.
But it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't gotten all the way out there, so that you were meant to be there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I appreciate you all coming. I have one last one. Do you have a book suggestion that you love to recommend to people that really is dear to your heart? Anybody can go?
Start. Yeah, my favorite, I have two favorite books that I read even like a couple times a year. The Compound Effect.
Okay.
It is wonderful, easy to read, and it will change your life. I really like it, and I think I read it in the last 2 months. So, and I've read it before, so you can read it as many times as you want. And then I like The Secret, the book of The Secret for mindset. I love it too. So
I read it, yeah.
that I would read, because it's not a story, so you can just open the book and just read a page, and it's peaceful. So I like both books combined. They're so different, but they're both about mindset, and they just grow you spiritually and mentally. Like Compound Effect, my favorite. Second, The Secret.
Okay. One.
Oh God. I what's that? I can't think of the name. It's the famous Marine. He wrote a book about it, actually, and I think Don't Give Up. I think it's a book. Pardon me, I'm like, I can't think of the name right now. I read it at the beginning of the year. The guy's really famous. He was a Marine who started doing marathons. Actually, he was a Navy SEAL.
Bald guy?
Graduated Navy SEAL. Huh?
Bald guy?
Yeah, black, bald guy. He was a Navy SEAL, and then he started doing marathons. And he talks about how he failed Navy SEAL training 2 times. He finally was able to graduate the 3rd time, and then he started running marathons. And it talks about he goes into all the physical pain, and just reminds you that pain is temporary, and the rewards can last a lifetime, will last a lifetime. And I think that back in my career, sometimes you lose a loan, or you put in a lot of work into a loan, and it somehow it just doesn't work out. But you learn from that experience, and makes you a stronger person, and that's kind of the theme of the book. He failed many times. He put his body and mind through hell. And when he failed, or he didn't meet his goal, he learned from that, and that for me carries on in my professional career, but also the personal career, because I'm in my mid-40s. I still want to be active. I have a son that's 14. I tell him to this day, I am going to kick your butt in basketball all the way through college, and it motivates me to be healthy, to join a gym and go work out. And sometimes it's not easy. It doesn't get any easier with age. But I always remember that the reason I'm doing it. And sometimes you're not successful, but you learn from that mistake. And that's probably most recently. That's probably one of the most influential books that I've read recently.
Nice.
Alfredo?
Perfect.
I would say Atomic Habits.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a good one too. It's on the list. I know I have some habits I need to get better at. So, well, I appreciate you all being here and giving all of your input. And I know that we will all still be in each other's lives and get to work together and still continue to help each other. And you have taught me a lot today. So this was Hops in a Home, and you can check in with us next time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us, Alexus.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.